Hello, class. We are going to finish up this week's assignment. We're still going to do more work after this on this drawing, but we're going to finish this week by adding some trees and some people scale figures, if you will, into this drawing just to make it a little bit more interesting. And there's lots of different ways of doing this. I'm sure I'll talk about in class how I have this great Illustrator tree that I made, and it really is fantastic, but that's for a different topic for a different time. What we're going to do is we're just going to start our process of downloading things from Google and putting them into the file. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google, and I'm sure all of you know this by now, but I can do an image search by coming up here and hitting the image button, and when I type in something like tree and press return, it will return a bunch of pictures of trees. And what we're going to do is we want to save one that we can use in the background, and there's a few things we need to do to easily get this to work for where we currently are in Illustrator. So for example, I may like this tree here, but it's got a sky and a ground, and if I put this into Illustrator, I'm going to see the whole photograph. So that's not going to work for me. Unless I know Photoshop and can cut it out and want to spend the time doing it. But we can see lots of other trees already have things cut out from them. And we don't have to do all that work. So we're not going to go over that step. We're just going to take an easy way around. And if I click on this one, we can see that maybe this tree would work for us, but it's going to turn out it doesn't work. I'm going to show you the reason why. Notice that this background is white. That means the background is white. Just like this background is a sky and ground, and if I brought this in, it's going to have a big white square around it, but I don't want a big white square around the tree. I want it to take on the sky gradient that I applied in a couple videos ago. Now if I look at other trees, let's say this one here, and you can go ahead and find your own trees. I just know these trees, and they load up the first one, so I'm using them, but feel free to find other trees you like. Notice the background on here. It's got this gray and white checkerboard pattern with these stripes coming through. That is not the background color. What that is a symbol of is a symbol that it's transparent. So if I save this tree and bring it in, it will do what I want to do, which is show the tree and show my sky in the background. So I'm going to use this tree. I'm going to right click over top of it. I'm going to do save image. This is Firefox. I know different browsers have slightly different terms here, but I'm going to save image, and I'm going to go and place these image when it gives me a chance in my file that I'm working on here, which for me is a 300 file for the class, and I'll just leave it. I'll call it Huckleberry tree. That's fine. Now you can go save as many trees as you want, save different trees. I'm going to go with this one just for the interest of time. I'm just going to use one for now. So I'm going to go to Illustrator. I'm going to come to my layers. I'm going to make a layer for trees. So I'm going to lock my shadows, and I'm going to put my trees behind my building so it doesn't obstruct my building. So I'm going to go right to the sky layer because I want it to be on top of the sky, and I'm going to hit a layer and call it trees. And I'm going to place this tree into the file. So to do that, I'm going to go to File, Place, and I will go and find that file that I just did, which is right here because I've got it open, this Huckleberry tree. Now, be careful. You can keep your file linked. If I link this in and I place this in as is, it needs to find the exact same spot. So if I say put this tree, if you just save this tree on your desktop in the studio and the computer restarts and it's no longer on the desktop, you will lose it. It will not be in your file. So a safe way of doing it is to unlink it. Now that's going to make your Illustrator file bigger, but you're never going to lose the tree. It really doesn't matter as long as you have good practice, but for safety, so it might be better just to unlink it. So I'm going to go to Place. It's going to bring in the tree. Well, clearly this tree is way too big. It's not a problem. What I'll do is I'll scale it. In an elevation, the trees always sit on the ground line, so I can move the base of my tree right to the ground line that I have developed. And what I'll do is I can come and then up to the top corner until I get this angled double arrow here, click and pull and scale. If I hold shift, it'll be scaled proportionally, although a tree is organic and doesn't necessarily need to be perfectly held even. And I can pull it over to maybe a good spot that I want to see it. Now this building is 2 stories, it's high, so that's, maybe that's around 30 feet. That's a small tree, so I could actually make this bigger. If I wanted to, I could maybe even make it go beyond the top of the screen. In fact, I always recommend when you're doing trees that at least one hang off the side. So we notice that the edge of my paper is right here, but my tree is hanging over it. I got to move it down just a little bit here. There we go. But my edge is right here. When I go to print this, this part of the tree will be cut off, and it'll make it look like my trees are here. If you contain all your trees within the paper size, it looks too forced. Because there's no way, if this was in sort of Delhi, as mine implies, or some sort of place in the country, that you would have some, trees perfectly aligned, that they fit perfectly in your rendering. They're random. They grow where they want to grow, so they hang off of things. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same tree, though you could use multiple trees, different trees, which would be nice as well. Notice one thing too, which is nice about my tree: the light's coming from the top left, just like the light from my building is coming from the top left. If your tree shadow is coming from the top right, you could flip this under Object, Transform, Reflect, and I'll just do a preview. We can see it flips the lighting direction. I don't need to do that, so I'm canceling out. But if your tree shadow that you liked was coming from the wrong side, it's usually going to come from the top, because that's where the sun's going to come, but it's a matter of left and right. You can just mirror it like that. Mine happens to be coming from the correct side here. So I'm going to put one there. I'm going to make a copy by using my black arrow, Alt, click and pull. Of course, trees aren't identical, so I'm going to just maybe squish this down a little bit, move it in, here, so it sort of comes into that location there, and at least it looks a little bit different because I squished it a little bit. It's not quite the right height, and I might just put one more off to the side on this side, and I don't know what will happen if I just sort of stretch it out and stretch it up a little bit, sort of getting in the way of my title there. I might want to move my title name if that's indeed where I want my tree. But I'm going to do one more thing, because right now these trees are big and bold. I always have a problem of using realistic trees in almost any rendering for this purpose, but it's the easiest way to do it right now. But one way to sort of tone that down is to sort of select all of these trees and come over here and make them semi-transparent. They don't even have to be much, something like 80%. It's just going to tone those trees down a little bit to fade them. And they're in the distance anyway, so it sort of makes sense. And what I'll do now is I'm going to come and unlock my text layer, and it looks like I'm just going to pull my title inbound because it's too hard to read. I don't necessarily like that spot either. Let's see, where might be a good spot for this. One thing I could do is I could keep my title here and change it to white. I wonder what that'll look like. Yeah, I can read that. I'll go with that. A little tweak there. You can do, if you don't have a tree there, it's not a problem. There's lots of ways of solving that issue. So there's trees. I want to add a scale figure or two, and I'm basically going to do it the same way. I want to put my scale figures pretty much on top. They want to be below the shadows, because if there is a shadow that they go into, they're going to be cast on it, but above all the rest of the rendering. So I'm going to do scale figure in this location here. I'm going to go back to my search, and I'm going to type in man walking silhouette. Transparent's fine. It's not going to turn up transparent, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. You could do women walking, you could do person sitting, whatever the case might be. I'm just going to do this. And I'm going to start with one scale figure. You might put in more. And I'm going to click on this, and we're going to notice that, it's not transparent. But because I'm using a silhouette, I have a shortcut I can do in Illustrator to make this transparent really easily, or quasi-transparent. But you don't have to do black. You could do a white scale figure. You could do a real person scale figure. You could do a gray scale figure. There's lots of different options out there, but I like doing it this way. I'm going to base it off of this guy. I'm going to right-click, do Save Image, just like I did for the tree. I'm going to save the image. I'm going to come to my Illustrator file. I'm going to go File, Place. I'm going to place this in, and it comes in as white, right? Which is not what I want. But watch this. I'm going to go to transparency. I'm not going to change the transparency. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to here. This thing is called your blending mode, and I'm going to go to multiply. and what it does is it knocks out the white. What multiply does simply is it takes anything that's white and makes it 100% transparent, anything that's black make it 0% transparent, and anything that's in between, a gray tone or a color, it makes it the related proportional transparency of that. So when I have a black and white drawing like this man, or what you often have in architecture, it's a great way to make everything transparent except for the black pieces. Now, of course, right now this guy is a super giant. He is not correctly scaled, so I just need to scale him down, and I might use the door. If this is about a 7-foot door or so, I know he's going to be smaller than that, so I can at first sort of float him up in the air up here, come up to the corner, get the double arrow, press shift and pull in, because a person does want to be scaled to the same, I don't want to make them short and squat, which will happen if I just pull down like that, right? That doesn't look right. I'm going to undo that. I'm just going to go from the corner and hold shift so it's proportional until he's about the height of what a person would be against that door. A little bit smaller. Maybe a crouch bigger. Of course, people aren't exactly the same height, so it doesn't matter, but I think somewhere around there looks pretty good. So then I can just move him wherever I want. He doesn't have to be at the front door. I think what might be nice is if he's standing up over here on this deck over here. So I will put them there. You can sort of see how that fits into that. Again, you should add more people. It'd be great to have some people sitting out here on the deck. Maybe over here can be really sort of nice and lively. But I'm going to end it there for the interest of time, because I'm already over 10 minutes on this video, and it's really quite simple and easy. But we can see as we start to have a nearly complete drawing, we're still going to do some things. It's much more richer than the last time we printed out, because it's got trees and gradients and things like that, but the colors still aren't quite right. Would be great to get some more texture. It's a little plain down in these areas. It definitely looks like a computer drawing, and the next set of lessons we're going to do is going to look and see if we can enhance all of that. But before we do that, we're going to print this guy out. We're going to hang these up on the wall and talk about them. So good luck.